Well, economic cluster ministers are set to face tough questions from members of the National Assembly in the next half an hour or so. A hybrid plenary sitting will start at 3 o'clock. The cluster comprises of the Ministers of Finance, Employment and Labour, Mineral and Energy, Forestry and Fisheries, as well as Communications and Digital Technologies. Let's take you live to Cape Town. Athi Mtongana is our reporter on this story. And Athi, we're now half an hour away, as I was saying, to this plenary. What are we expecting?
A very good afternoon to Tembi. Well, we're expecting members of the cluster for economics to be grilled by members of the National Assembly in this hybrid plenary sitting, which will take place at 3 p.m. in the Good Hope Chamber. Obviously, other members will join virtually, but of course, this is normal practice for Parliament to have members of the executive, particularly those in charge of crucial departments within government, to come and answer about the work that is being done in their respective governments. It's interesting you have mentioned that those ministers comprise of the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Employment and Labour, the Minister of Energy, for example, the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, including the Minister of Transport. Those are just some of the ministers who will be facing these tough questions in the plenary sitting this afternoon. So it's interesting, I was actually going through, Tembi, the list of questions that these ministers will be asked, and those include questions around how many jobs has the presidential employment stimulus package created, for example. They'll be asking them questions around particularly the issue of unemployment. You know, it's something that the country is currently grappling with, high numbers of unemployment. They'll be also asking the Minister of Public Enterprises about Eskom and Transnet and all these other state-owned entities and the involvement of the private sector in trying to deal and mitigate some of the challenges that are faced by SOEs in the country. For example, I know the EFF will be asking questions around how Transnet will be including the private sector and how the private sector will be involved in the turnaround at Transnet. I know also some of the members of Parliament will be asking questions around load shedding. What has caused the upsurge, the recent upsurge in power outages around the country? One MP will also be posing a question whether government should consider getting or perhaps calling a state of disaster with regards to the energy crisis that is faced by the country, particularly with Eskom. A lot of questions around Eskom, Temegile, considering how Eskom has been implementing load shedding over the past couple of months. This year alone, a lot of people have raised questions about whether the current leadership at Eskom is doing enough to actually alleviate the pressure that Eskom has had over the years. You may recall that heated exchange between Parliament Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Mkhuleko Hlengwa, the chairperson of that committee, as well as the board members of Eskom, when they appeared or when they were faced with questions from Scopa. So those are some of the questions that will be asked. These departments will have to answer about what work they have done respectively in their departments to ensure that the work that is being done in those departments is contributing towards economic growth in South Africa.
Athi Mtongana, thank you very much.